to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very fancy and erudite episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing Velvet Buzzsaw, a movie about something, art,
skinning your ass raw,
artists, and terrible tattoos.
You've been waiting for so long, Joe.
Yeah. Terrible tattoos and Jake Gyllenhaal just hamming it up. Everybody hamming it up, basically, in this movie. This was a Netflix original, and that's what we're doing tonight. So we're talking about on the show. Joining me, first up, coming to us from Hotlanta, Georgia, our own resident artist at Bloody Good Horror.
Yes.
Please welcome CC to the show.
Hello. I feel like I left the literal world that was being shown in this movie to come home and talk about the exact same thing.
We're very excited to get your insight tonight, so look forward to that, everybody. Next up on the show, coming to us from Manhattan, New York City. There's some fancy art people in New York City, I believe. The business manager at bloodygoodhorror.com. Please welcome John Schnars.
We got the art, Eric.
I was gonna say you should be investing in a lot of art being in New York.
Here's my question, John. Is your
See, that requires money.
Yeah.
John on
I'm actually gonna start taking all the Patreon money and just buying, like, you know.
You should go to Times Square and
Outside
just start collecting those caricatures and the shitty spray paint stuff that people buy, and then present them in the back and show them to CC every week. What about this one? Is this gonna go up in value?
John, serious question. Is your dirt stash art or trash?
Eric, this is cultivated.
Like, I think your dirt goatee could be like a living art exhibit. Like, you just sit there in a wife beater drinking coffee, and people stand around and talk about how you're like the embodiment of the failed American dream.
If this movie taught me anything, it's that art is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah,
so
100%. That's
you
what I'm
tell
saying.
me.
I'm saying I see art when I look at you, John. That's all I'm saying.
This one's my name, but it's drawn in butterflies. CC, is this gonna be worth something?
Last up tonight on the show, coming to us from Chicago, Illinois. It's the Midwest. I'm not really sure how much art is out there, Joe, but anyway, welcome to the show.
Hey, we got a fucking architecture, man.
I mean, I like that Bob's Big Boy sculpture. There's a lot of those out there.
No, there's one, and I think that's in Indiana.
I definitely have been to a Bob's Big Boy in Illinois. No, Illinois? Iowa? Maybe Iowa.
Same
Iowa?
thing.
A lot of I states.
Yes, it is the same thing. We're here tonight to talk about Velvet Buzzsaw, but first we got a bunch of other stuff going on. John Schnars, you got all hot and bothered before the show here because you're not on Twitter, so you learned about things like a week after everybody else, so you just learned about this horror noir documentary.
Confirmed. Yeah, people were talking about it on Slack. I was like, what the hell are y'all talking about? And then they posted the trailer, and it looks amazing.
Great.
It is a documentary about it's basically about the black experience of horror, or sort of black art in horror. I don't know. There's just it's like black and horror mixed together.
John, what are you gonna say?
What?
No, just like looking at it from black contributions, black influences, black actors' experiences, like that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it looks really, really interesting.
Did you say it's Shudder tomorrow, right? Right? It comes out? Or?
It is Shudder original. Yeah, it comes out. Well, we say tomorrow. It's probably today.
Yeah.
If you're hearing
2 days ago.
Yeah.
I was surprised. Shudder, I mean, they get good stuff on there, but I don't expect their exclusive content to be that legit looking. And this looks like a legit documentary.
No, their exclusive stuff has been on fire for the last 6 months or so. Yeah.
I mean, Revenge. They picked up a bunch of stuff last year for sure. So
yeah.
I mean, this is maybe they've done other documentaries I haven't seen, but this, at least for me, this was the first documentary that I've realized.
I'm waiting for that Joe Bob weekly show, John. That's where I'm at.
I know. It's coming.
Let's see. Other streaming things, John. You wanted to talk about the Firefest doc. Which one did you watch?
So I watched the Hulu one.
Okay. I watched the Netflix one.
I'm curious because I watched the Hulu one also, and at the end of the Hulu one, they throw a little shade to the Netflix one. So I'm kind of curious
yeah.
to see the Netflix.
I would say
one.
a lot of shade, actually.
I thought
Yeah.
it
What
was.
do they do? I hadn't finished it.
Well, I guess the producers, it's Vice and this like media agency that helped promote Firefest, produce the Netflix one, right? Am I explaining that right,
Well,
John? Or-
yeah, so I didn't realize. So like you guys all know Fuck Jerry, like the Instagram
Yeah.
account. Like
It's
I didn't realize that
No,
that's just.
I
Like,
learned
basically-
about that through this.
Yeah, well, so I didn't. I same here. Like I didn't realize they were like also a media agency. I mean, it's obvious when you think about it, but yeah. So they apparently basically produced the one that went to Netflix, but the Hulu documentary kind of like makes them out to be a big part of the problem.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
definitely partially responsible.
And they then it sounds like in the Netflix one they kind of their take is more like, hey, we didn't know what was going on either for most
I
of the
mean,
time.
so here's my thing. As a person with a functioning hippocampus, John, I think that
Mhm.
I think that you
Is
watch
that where the break-
like
no.
I could see where there's not really a lot of mention about Fuck Jerry at all. Like maybe a little bit now that I think about it, but like
Mm.
it is very clear watching this movie that these people are fucking assholes. Like you don't even in their attempt to sort of, it's like when the dudes behind Twin Galaxies, right? They were really upset about King of Kong because they felt like it
Mhm.
made them look like idiots. So they tried to make their own documentary. It's actually it's really interesting. It's called Chasing Ghosts, and they made it, and you watch it, and you're like, oh yeah, these guys are still idiots, even though I'm watching this thing that's clearly made by them to try to like, but it still ends up being entertaining. That's kind of how I feel about the Netflix one. Like, it is still so obvious these are just spoiled rich assholes because they interview plenty of people in the Netflix one that were completely fucked over by it. Like they interview a lot of the
Oh,
people
yeah.
that were there. They interview like these business people that were screwed over on the island. So like there's no shortage of people discussing how dumb these people were and just like reckless. But certainly, you know, they do give them a little bit of a megaphone, I guess, to try to like do some PR, but they're so far gone at this point. It's like,
Interesting. I mean, I think if we can all agree though that Ja Rule played no part in any of this.
oh my god, he's like, never heard of this guy. No, it's really insane.
Ja.
And the funny thing is, so like we talk about this a lot, but my wife like is not an internet person, which is like one of the things I really love about her. So she had no idea she didn't know what Firefest was at all, and I just said like I kind of want to throw this on, and she's like, oh my god, this is making me nervous. Like what happened on this island? I'm just like, but I also wish that I didn't know anything about it. Like I just happened to be on Twitter that day. Do you remember when it blew up and like
Yeah.
people were
Yeah.
posting the pictures?
Well, that's
and-
like the first I heard about it when all of a sudden these things about like
Yeah.
people being there and getting effed over, but like I had heard nothing about it before, which you know is a bummer because I feel like
you're
we-
losing your edge, Joe.
Well, I felt like we could have been influencers on this show. Like if we would have said, "Yo, boys, go to Firefest. The BGH posse's gonna be there. We'll talk about horror."
If it's
spookies."
one thing I know about the BGH audience, it's that they're young, rich, sexy influencers.
Well, I mean, you know.
There's a lot of really sad stuff in the Netflix doc about how like a lot of these people literally will like there was a company that owned a private jet and influencers would pay them to just go sit on the jet and get pictures taken. Like it doesn't fly anywhere, take them anywhere, but it takes pictures for their Instagram account to make it look like they're on a private jet. And that I absorbed that piece of information, John, and it actually like it absorbed into my soul and it started to wither inside of me. And I was not a fan of that feeling.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ruin the surprise for the September meetup, but it's actually just we're gonna get together, take a picture in front of a jet, and then everybody just goes their separate ways.
We're just gonna fly to a giant Fonzie statue, walk 5 miles, take a picture, and then come back.
no, that would be ridiculous.
Oh,
Good
my
times.
God.
Anyway, I think that they're most likely both interesting documentaries. Just
Yeah,
more-
I think we're gonna watch the Netflix one. We just like watch the Hulu one first, and you know. we'll
Oh,
get to the other-
there's no way in hell I'm watching another documentary on it though. I don't. And also, I have a principle stand against Hulu, John, because I'm not gonna pay a company for shit that's gonna then serve me commercials on top of it because it's fucking horseshit.
No, you can get a commercial-free version of Hulu.
Yeah.
How much is it?
It's like $12 a month or something.
Yeah, it's like an
Or-
I mean, yeah, it's not that much more.
It's
or if you know someone,
cheaper
it's
than cable.
$3.99.
Yeah, I mean, I use my sister's account, so
Free 99.
I'm currently using Evan's leads.
Oh gosh. Okay. Bloody Good Horror stuff.
Mhm.
Jason. So on your feed right now, you notice we've been doing some like audio interviews in the feed. Jason interviewed this guy. He's an indie director. His name is Nicholas. I don't know if it's Pesh or I want to say Pesci when I look at it, but
I
it's
would say
probably
Pesci.
Pesh,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, either way. So we know this guy John because he directed The Eyes of My Mother, which
Mhm.
is like a
Excellent.
really interesting little indie film that came out in 2016. His current movie is called Piercing. It's actually out in theaters now. And Piercing stars Mia Wasikowska. Are you familiar with her,
Mm.
John?
Yes, love her.
Yes.
Ah, I believe that's where Black Panther lives.
Oh my god.
Wayakaska forever.
Wow. And he the other thing of note about Nick or whatever Nicholas John is that he's currently in post production on the US Grudge remake. They're remaking
Hmm.
I guess the original Grudge, and that's slated for 2020 right now.
People are really excited about this Piercing movie.
Yeah,
so
no,
I'm pumped to see it.
it's gotten a lot of buzz. Oh, Lynn Shay is in the Grudge remake, John. Here we go, buddy.
Here we go.
She's
Part,
bringing it to the further.
part of the Wandaverse, buddy.
Still Shay Day.
So, oh, what if you made a song that was like Dre Day, but it was Shay
Yeah.
Day?
I can't.
Oh, who's she
I
talking?
can't sing like.
Who's she
half the
talking
lyrics,
shit?
but-
Who's she like dissing that track though? That's what I want. Like, who's she taking it to?
Related note,
Uh.
I don't know if you guys saw, not to get off topic, but DMX is going on tour for the 20th anniversary of It's Dark and Hell is Hot. And I really want to go, but then I'm also thinking like I'm going to be in the audience and I cannot sing like 75% of those lyrics. So like, what am I going to do? Just
Fun
stand
fact: I was supposed to
Take me. Actually, I'll just...
I was supposed to see DMX in college as part of the Family Values tour. It was supposed to be the first time, Joe, that I saw Limp Bizkit. However, like literally an hour before the concert, DMX no-showed, and they had to cancel the whole thing. They just didn't go on. So like,
just because of him?
I was at an apartment, like just getting pre-gaming, getting hammered for this concert, and nothing happened. And then I just had to. It was light outside still, and I was like, okay. So I walked back to my dorm. I sat down on a bench because I had the spins for a little while. Then I went
Oh,
back to my
boy.
dorm. I went to bed at like 7 o'clock at night because I was just hammered and felt like crap. I'm like, this is terrible.
Oh man.
So that's
a
every time I
bummer.
hear DMX, I get kind of mad. But
Yeah,
that was the
I
thing.
think that's the point.
That was the era of his career. Like I think that was like a chronic problem for him. Was just like no showing dates.
Yeah, it was definitely very Guns N' Roses esque for a while, where he would be like super late or just not show up at all.
Really quickly though, what I want to say was this Nicholas Pesh. He's a really interesting interview. You can tell he's like a super passionate guy about horror, John. And so if you it's only like 10 minutes long. If you have some time, check it out in the feed. It's a great listen and an opportunity to hear from another young voice working in the horror genre.
Nice.
So there it is. CC, right before our
Yes.
last thing before we get into the movie here, you have a side project that you've been working on. We've talked about it before in the show, a Grim magazine. This is a spooky magazine brought to you
It is.
by Spooky Ladies. Do you want to tell me about the newest thing going on?
Yes. So Grimm is actually an inclusive magazine, so it's not just females, but there is a special women in horror issue that's coming out. It's actually available for purchase now. If you go to anatomyofascream.com, you can either get a PDF version or you can order a print version, and you actually have awesome essays from a lot of amazing writers. Our very own Sophie is in this issue
Ah.
as well.
Are you telling me that the
and
Danger Girls are well represented in this issue of Grim
the
magazine?
Danger Girls are very well represented. I did the cover for this issue as well,
Listen,
and
I don't-
don't have an essay, but
I don't want
I'm-
you. I'm gonna put up in the video actually, if that's okay. I don't want you to gloss over this, CC, because this cover is fire. As the kids, it's
yes.
lit AF.
Well, thank you. It is my favorite. You know, I wanted to do a little something different, so it is a digital collage that is a little, I don't know. It's a good representation of,
Did you shoot it yourself?
Women in horror.
Do you do photography?
No, well, I do, but that's not any of my photography. So basically, that's like a vintage 70s pinup that
Oh.
I kind of like clipped and added a nice you know, savanna background to, and there's a lot of symbolism in the hyena that she's kind of like transforming into. So
Great.
yeah,
So where can people check that out?
so you can go to anatomyofascream.com,
Great.
and there you can get a PDF version, or you can order your very own print version.
Can you do me a favor and just
Yes.
throw that the cover shot in the chat so I can just throw it up for people to see?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Josephine,
Mm-hmm.
you got a haircut, buddy.
I did, yeah. Got them all cut, buddy.
How often do you get your haircut?
I try to stick to a 6-week regimen.
Okay.
Regimen.
How do you feel about chatting with the hair lady?
No, that's actually what I was about to say. The reason why it always goes longer is because I hate talking to people, and I just went to a new barber yesterday because the old one was getting a little too talky. When
A little too familiar.
Yeah. like,
Wow. I see. You'd think I wouldn't enjoy that because I hate people, but if you get a good one that's easy to talk to, then I find it makes the time go by. I haven't had use of a barber in a few years now, Joe, but if I
try to
did,
go-
I would enjoy going to a good one. I feel like.
I hate going to the barber just because like it's like one of these things that I feel like it's like a waste of time. Like you're just sitting there not doing anything. It's but I fall asleep every time. They start cutting my hair. There's something about it that just puts me to
What?
sleep.
Are you psycho?
Yes.
What is
That's
that?
disgusting.
Dude, and I feel bad. I'm like, oh god, I should
Do you take
keep my eyes open.
Do you take your shoes off and put them up on her counter?
Like,
Jesus
how
Christ.
awkward is that for the barber to have to wake you up?
No, well, like I'm not like snoring or something, but literally my eyes get so heavy, and I'm just like, and they must think I'm drugged or something, but then they probably realize like I just have young children, and
You're a fucking lunatic.
it's hard.
I'm like every probably 4 or 5 haircuts. I'm done. Like I'm like, all right, I gotta go find somebody new.
Man,
'cause
that's crazy, Joe.
they'll
Joe-
say something or
Joe, I
like, they'll-
encourage you to try to branch out and start a long-term relationship with a barber. I think you might find it fulfilling.
Yeah,
Hey,
you are more of a sociopath than I've always
Actually,
Me?
I went in Chicago, but no joke, this is what ended our relationship. She got engaged, and 2 times I went there, she was talking about planning her wedding, and I'm like, out.
Maybe
Sorry.
you should start a chain of silent barbershops.
I've had this vision. I'm like, just because I went to Sports Clips this last time, which is like that chain, and I've avoided that because I'm like, I don't know anything about sports, and I don't want you to say a fucking word to me about basketball or something with.
They're like,
hoops
hey,
and
buddy,
dribbles."
how about the
Wow.
basketballs?
Yeah, I'm like, no. Like, I want one that's for just like awkward people who don't want a word said to them. Like,
Wow.
I
Wow.
You
just,
could, I mean, you could pretend like you have
Well,
social
Joe,
anxiety disorder or something when you get there. Just be like,
What does that
listen,
pretend? Like, look at me when I sit down. I'm like,
Joe, listen, all I'm saying is I want a store that exclusively sells clothing for small people, but we're never going to see our dreams reached unless we do it ourselves. So there you go.
oh,
All right,
my
Joe.
God.
No idea where I was going with that, but please tell us what we're drinking tonight.
Beer guts.
I'm just saying, make your dreams come true, Joe. Like, what's stopping you?
There was a long time in Jersey where I would actually grow my hair out, get a haircut, because I used to just have it buzzed, and then I would be so nervous about going to an actual barber. I'd be like, I'm just gonna buzz it again. Like, I can't do this. Like, I'm done. I hate it. I hate that conversation.
Nah, you're right. I take it back. You have social anxiety disorder.
Oh, 100%. Anyway, I pack a velvet buzzsaw. I'll skin your ass raw. I don't really need to explain the movie for this one tonight. It's from the fine folks over at Firestone Walker Brewing Company. They are all the way out in Paso Robles, California. Let's just go with that. And this is their Velvet Merlin, which is an oatmeal stout. Full disclosure before I get angry tweets and hate from people, these guys got bought out or sold to Duval, which is the Belgian brewing company
Oh,
in
I love that stuff.
Belgium.
I love that stuff so much.
About 5 years ago, I think. So they're not actually U.S. owned or locally owned anymore, but they still do their production and brewing here. So, you know,
Is
you can do
Duval
worse.
like
they
a-
make good beers.
No, they make incredible beers. Are they like a big conglomerate though?
No, they're
Because I was
not.
always under
So-
the impression that they were like a smaller thing. Maybe that was just
They're foreign, Eric.
my
is
own
what he's getting
naivete.
at.
Yeah, I think what you'll get is like, they're not American owned.
John, have
Uh,
you been in America lately? Do you really want to tie yourself to this? I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm with you.
Bloody
So,
Good Horror
you know.
LLC is now owned by InBev. Breaking news. We sold.
So this is an oatmeal stout, and I've talked about these a few times, but pretty much that means they use oats in the brewing process. Like when they're putting in the mash, there's actual oats there. Usually gives it like sort of a creamy feel, sometimes a little bit sweeter, but in this one, not so much. These guys, they put out good beers. I'll be honest, I do kind of steer away from them just because they're not like locally owned anymore or, US owned. But this one is one of my favorite stouts, so I'll definitely take this if I can find it on tap. Has sort of like a coffee roasted, like dark chocolate flavor to it. It's very not bitter, but like has that sort of black coffee kind of aroma and taste, which I'm a huge fan of. And stouts are perfect for this time of year. Comes in at only about 5.5% alcohol, which is pretty typical for the style, so not super high. You can drink these while you're shoveling the yard or doing whatever you got to do in these
Shoveling
winter.
the yard.
Shovel your yard, and still be fine. And yeah, firestonebeer.com is their website, and check them out.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, guys. It is time. Let's discuss Velvet Buzzsaw.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. Not to go on another tangent, John. I don't want to, but I just would like to say that you're actually
Sometimes you have to.
you're
You just-
actually
it's
you're due for a haircut. I just wanted to let you know.
dude. I don't. We don't need to get into the haircut situation right now. I know that I am. Thank you.
Let it out, buddy. I'm
I
there
mean,
with you.
you're in New
We
York
get it.
City, so it's not like there's 7 billion places to get your haircut there.
No, 100%. No. So basically, long story short, I switched hair cutteries, and I've been extremely unhappy. And I've been going to. I went to this one like 3 times. Third time, I was like, "Fuck this, I'm done. I need to go back to my old guy." But my old guy's further away, and I forgot that they're closed on Sunday. So this past Sunday, I like get up, I get ready to go, and here we are.
Plus, you have the anxiety of going back to an old one, and they're gonna know that you've been going to somebody else.
Joe,
It's-
I had a story about how
how-
I moved, and therefore I was further away, and so I had to,
Yeah.
How is it?
Don't worry.
How is it
Were
that
you like-
how is it that I'm somehow the least awkward of the 3 of us in this with
Oh.
this interaction?
No, wait, there's nothing awkward about it. I just like started
Oh,
going
it's-
somewhere
it's
different.
awkward.
No, it's
Yeah.
awkward. I can hear it. Yeah, it's
I
real
love
weird.
this.
My other thing is I will not pay more than $20 for a haircut.
No,
Like, I feel
I'm
like
with
that's
you.
bullshit.
I mean, that's pretty impossible here, but I'm with you on principle.
I also hate having to schedule my haircut because that's fucking ridiculous. Like, this thing takes 10 minutes, and you should just be able to take me whenever I walk in the door. Or I should have to wait for like maybe 2 people.
Joe, no lie. Okay, let me ask you a question. This is fucking ruining the show. Joe, do you blend the sides there, or is that just a straight line? Is it
I
just
couldn't
like
tell you.
is it long hair and then short hair, or do they
Joe
blend?
just
Uh,
says, "Give me the usual."
'Cause, like,
They do
Yeah.
whatever.
When
I
I had hair, I used to give myself basically that same haircut. Like you could do that yourself.
I say, Dennis the Menace, just give it to me. No, I do a 2 on the side and then up top as short as humanly possible, as long as I can actually comb it over.
Okay,
That's
you
what I
could
tell
do
them.
that. You could do that with clippers. I'm just saying.
No, I could not.
Joe, you should just write that down on a piece of paper, hand it to him when you walk in, and be like, "Sorry, I can't, no talkie."
All right, John.
No talkie.
John, I don't have time to Google it. Did Duke do anything racist this week?
No. It turns out though, the entire state of Virginia.
Oh my
has
God.
done a lot of
I'm not.
racist
No,
shit.
we're not. We're not getting
All right,
this.
we don't need to get into it.
Congratulations,
it's blowing
John.
my mind.
Congratulations on a great news cycle for Duke. Please bring us the word of the day. We're literally never going to get through this review, and it's all my fault, and I can't stop.
I could do an entire hour and a half about my haircut, like.
Apparently. Guys, today's word. I took this directly from Cece's email earlier today. Folie à deux. Folie à deux. I think I'm saying that right. This is a delusion or mental illness shared by two people in close association. Folie à deux. It's actually 3 words technically. It's more like a saying, but F-O-L-I-E.
Wait a minute. Is this like the mental illness that you and Joe share about getting a haircut? This is incredible.
Do not tie me to Joe. His insecurities about talking to the barber.
Wow.
So obviously, it's not even like correct to say that this comes from the French. It is just French, and in French, it literally means shared madness. Folie à deux. Thank you to Cece because I learned a new
There you
word
go.
today.
Cece, thank you for doing John's job. It's been duly
Sure,
noted.
of course.
Yeah.
Monica,
I was like, let me read this email again. She said a bunch of smart shit. so-
Monica, if you're listening, please make a note on the spreadsheet about when John doesn't actually come up with the word of the day himself.
Stop it.
And then note who did come
Should-
up with it.
Well, should we note for the record, just for the folks who are not in Slack, that your word last week was one that I had previously used,
Oh, yeah.
which I knew.
I still put more
Confirm.
thought into it than you did. All right, John. What's this movie about? Who directed it? Who's in it? What's it about?
Velvet Buzzsaw, directed by Dan Gilroy. I believe I can look at his page right now, but
he is Rene Russo's husband. P.S.
Oh shit! I didn't know that part. But
Who?
he was the director most recently, or sort of like most notably, I guess, of Nightcrawler. But it turns out he also wrote Born Legacy, Kong Skull Island, The Fall. He's written a ton of shit actually, and some pretty good stuff. So yeah, this is actually his second feature. I don't know. He wrote something else that I don't recognize and maybe a short, but he had done Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal also stars in this film. It's sort of an ensemble story. So that is to say, there's not really a main character, but what we have is sort of a film about the high art scene. I don't know. Cece, you're just gonna correct me on any time I try to describe the sort of art stuff
Yes,
going on.
it's a high art scene right now. I mean, it's just the industry of like art right now.
Yes. So you have Rene Russo as Rodora. She is a gallery owner, a super wealthy, successful gallery owner, former punk rock ingenue. You have this actress Zawe Ashton plays her sort of not assistant but protege Josephina. You have her competitor. The character's name is John Dandan. Toni Collette plays Gretchen, who's sort of an art curator at the LA Museum of Modern Art, but then leaves that to like basically make more money. You've got Natalia Dyer, who plays an assistant that helps all these people. David Diggs, like there's John Malkovich. There's a ton of big name, famous folks, and it's really sort of this ensemble piece about that's set up by the fact that Josephina, the sort of protege of Rene Russo, finds this cache of art, like literally thousands of pieces of art in an apartment sort of above hers in this building she lives in, because the man who had lived there died. It's sort of like unclear how he died, but she finds him in the hallway. She goes into his apartment, finds all this art. She learns that the building is about to destroy everything in the apartment because he had left a note saying basically everything was to be destroyed after he died. She takes the art, sort of takes it to Rene Russo. Well, she originally kind of plans to start selling it on her own because she realizes like it's actually this really, I don't know, compelling. We should get into why it's like valuable because that's like a part of the story here, I think. But she decides she's going to market this stuff. She and Rodora sort of team up. She sort of blackmailed or forced by Rodora to team up, and they market it. They make a ton of money, but what ends up happening is everyone that's sort of exposed to this art, and especially commercial elements of this art that was sort of illegally taken against the artist's will, starts to die. And they die in these like cartoonish set pieces where they are essentially being killed by art, not necessarily the same art, but like other pieces of art. So that's really the setup. I don't know. I'm sure we can like kind of get into some of the rest of the plot, but I think that's all the high notes.
We probably should, right? I mean, that's...
Art.
Joe, do you want me to continue? I will.
I have never wanted anything less.
I've just been waiting to make the Rodora the Explorer pun the entire time after you said the names.
Joe.
Oh, Jesus.
So I actually ended up enjoying this a good deal, and actually, after Cece kind of sent her thoughts, liked it even more. Um, it's interesting. It has a very 90-ish sort of feel, and I think for me, that's probably because it's been a long time since we've seen any movies, horror or not, that kind of deal with the, quote unquote art world like this. Like it feels very like this is a ridiculous example, but even like remember in Beverly Hills Cop when Axel Foley walks into the that like salon or like the and when Bronson Pinchot's there, like it feels like
Yeah.
that, like
Yeah.
almost like that sort of shtick. I'll say the horror element kind of took a back seat for me because I really sort of enjoyed Jake Gyllenhaal's character specifically and like the interaction he had with everybody else in this. But I thought it was pretty entertaining.
Cece.
Oh, I've been waiting so patiently. um, so I will say that going into this, I was wholeheartedly ready to hate it and be really annoyed to have to watch it in the first place because I had seen so many people say that like it was disappointing and they just weren't really into it. Even after reading some of the email chain from y'all this morning before I started it, I was like, oh God, it's
By
gonna
the
be
way,
torture.
CC weekly commits the cardinal sin of bloody good horror in that she reads all of our thoughts before she watches the movie.
Oh yes, not every time, but the majority of the time, yes, this is true. However, I started this movie and literally within 10 minutes, I was like, I love this movie. Like it is, it is such a black comedy satire of the art world, and I know that obviously I'm biased because this is my everyday life. Like no joke, these people are very much people that I work with and that I have like daily interactions with. So to see it start at Art Basel, which is like a huge deal in the art world. Art Basel is like the, I mean, it's like the New
It's
York
like the
Fashion Show.
horror hound convention of like of
Yes.
art. Yeah. Okay.
You have people who are like expected to be there and expected to like have these great things, and you have critics who are like, yes, this is great, no, that's horrible. My bosses constantly are talking about Art Basel. They're, it's
Have
just
you
it's
been to this?
no, I have not been invited because I am a lowly man on the totem pole.
Ew.
So I know.
Woman,
Um,
CC, woman.
excuse me, that's right. Individual, okay,
Yeah,
individual on the
yes,
totem
yes.
pole.
There you go.
However, um, as the movie really gets into the like nitty gritty of how art is kind of cliched into these mean girl groups of high art versus lowbrow art, and you basically have artists which lowbrow art is art that is not intellectually or elitist initially, and it's made by artists who are normally self-taught, and it normally represents or comes from more like popular culture or kind of
like John's goatee.
yes, things that are relatable or or like recognizable. So
Fucking pioneer, Eric.
yeah, so to see this this hermit of a artist have this like prolific catalog of artwork that he immediately wants to destroy, but then he is kind of undercut by this ambitious gallery assistant who is looking to like make money off of him. It's kind of every artist's dream. Like you want that notoriety, but you also don't want it after you're dead, but then you also don't want to sell out. So it's a really interesting juxtaposition of like greed and becoming famous and not selling out, but ultimately becoming famous is selling out. So I loved it. I thought it was amazing.
John Schnars.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, and we'll talk about it, like there are some of the best parts of this movie have nothing to do with it being a horror movie.
Oh,
Like
yeah, for
everything that
sure.
Cece
I
just
would
said,
say
like,
that 99% of the best parts of the movie have nothing to do
Yeah.
with being a horror movie.
yeah, yeah. I mean, so in watching this, I was like, I was having a very conflicted experience because it is weird. Like the tone is very weird. Here's the thing. One of the things I'd say is that the trailer and like having seen the trailer actually like hurts this movie in a
Mm.
lot of ways. Like it's one of these trailers that's just like not doing the movie any favors because ultimately the movie, to Cece's point, it's a black comedy,
Yeah.
and it's actually like not even that black. Like it sometimes it's just like super broad. Like the dialogue is very punchy in certain places. The acting, there's a lot of like scenery chewing going on. Specifically, I would point to, I mean, Jake Gyllenhaal obviously is like
Yeah.
he's at like peak Jake Gyllenhaal, just like whack job in this.
He's
And
great in this movie.
no, he's amazing. And
Oh,
then
for sure.
you know, Toni Collette, similarly, like the things they had her sort of like wearing and like her hairstyle in this movie, and then the
Oh, no,
way
I mean,
she
that-
acted, it's
That's
just like
very. I mean, that's very contemporary, and
No,
that's
I-
very of the day. Like,
Yeah, it's just interesting from an acting standpoint because you don't recognize her. Like, it took me a second to
yeah,
figure out
for
who the hell she
sure.
was when she came on screen.
yeah. So I mean, even like the Malkovich, who's really not, I wouldn't say like criminally underused, but he's not a huge part of this film.
Mhm.
But he's just like when he's there, he's just so like goofy in a lot of
Mhm.
ways, and so it when you're watching it, it's very disorienting because I came into this being like, oh, this is going to be this kind of offbeat but creepy sort of thing, and the reality is it's like mostly a comedy, but then has these like pretty standard slasher like death sequences. Now, to say they're slasher, it's more that the like sequence and the
Mhm.
pacing is slashery. So we don't get the first death until about 40 minutes in. The movie's about almost 2 hours. It's like an hour and 50 minutes. First death is like 40 minutes in, and but then it's like every 5 to 10 minutes there's a different death sequence, and they're very like Final Destination-y. But then all of that is interspersed in these just like weird like art satire, art world criticism stuff
Yeah.
that is just, I don't know. So all that is to say, it is a super weird movie. I ended up like, and the more we've talked about it, I've ended up like enjoying it more because as I think back on it, there were moments that were funny and like jokes that I was like so like almost like put on my back foot about them at the time that I like wasn't appreciating how ridiculous the whole thing
Well,
was.
and I think that like, I really, to step back into my day job, like I really think that what Dan Gilroy was doing. So this movie premiered at Art Basel, so it premiered as an art piece. So it's really interesting to see that he like created this movie about super high art that's like super intellectual, yet it's kind of promoted as a horror movie, which would be lowbrow art. And sometimes film is kind of seen as lowbrow art. So it's a really interesting kind of backhanded, like, okay, well, I'm going to put this in here and it's super intellectual because you're going to relate to it, but at the same time, I'm undercutting you. So I think that that's kind of why it's, promoted as a horror movie. I mean, like, yeah, like weird, freaky shit happens, but like you said, it's more of a an afterthought than.
Yeah. I guess I'm gonna play like a little bit of devil's advocate on this. I did not hate this movie. I maybe hated watching it at certain points because it there are parts of it that I don't understand why they're there, but there are things that I really enjoyed about this movie. This movie has just a mind-blowing cast in a lot of ways,
Mm.
and I even think that most of the script is really interesting. You know,
Mhm.
like I don't really I have enough sort of cultural context for the art world stuff to follow it, right? Like I don't
Sure.
relate to it the same way CC does, but that's none of that stuff is my issue with this movie at all because it's actually just like really fascinating. You feel like you can tell when you're watching something that's written by somebody with a lot of authentic experience in something, and you just
Mhm.
feel like, oh, I don't know anything about this, but I feel like I'm watching something from someone who totally does. You know what I mean?
For
Like
sure.
especially people like Rene Russo and Jake Gyllenhaal, they seem so clearly like that's a person that this person knows in real life. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And my favorite part, I kind of have two favorite parts when I really think about it. The relationship between Jake Gyllenhaal and Zawe Ashton is really fascinating because they're both fucking really intense and weird characters. He's gay, but also like
Yeah.
confused, and so like
Yeah.
so their
Well, I mean,
chemistry.
I think he's just supposed to be bi or, pretty fluid.
But like
Fluid
they're
is
but
the word.
because of that, but he's definitely confused. Like he said, literally, like that's said out loud by characters that he's confused at
Well,
some
and
point.
yeah, and he's also there's like a scene where he's having trouble consummating.
Deciding, yeah, exactly. But like
yeah.
what results out of that is this incredibly intense kind of awkward chemistry between the two of them that I thought was just like fire on screen. It's like fascinating to watch. Gyllenhaal is hamming it the hell up, and I love Jake Gyllenhaal. He's so good in this stuff. He's great in Nightcrawler. So that part I really loved. I also love this I think Rene Russo's really good, but I loved John Malkovich. Like he is sort of
He's so good in this.
he's kind of a side character, but because he's this different entity from anybody else in the film, because he's just an artist who has gotten sober and lost his creative kind of edge because
Well,
of it.
he's made it and he stopped
Yeah.
making art for himself.
Right, and so
now
Oh
he
yeah, they even
doesn't-
show you the like factory art
He's-
place
Yeah.
that he's like running.
he's just kind of meandering. My favorite scene of his is probably when he's finally signed with the new dude, and he brings him in. He brings him into a studio, which is basically a big, huge open space where he's shooting baskets, and there's one painting there, and then the guy realizes like, holy shit, I'm paying this guy all this money, and just realize that he hasn't done anything in like a year or something.
You mean when the guy walks in and sees the bag of trash on the floor and thinks that
He's like-
that's trash?
he's like,
That
"Oh,
was
I
your
love it."
favorite?
Genius.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love this piece. Yeah.
Well, he realizes he got duped because this woman had been quote unquote fighting to keep John Malkovich as her client, and then this guy steals him away, and then the guy
Yeah.
gets there and he's like, "Holy shit, she like let me take
But there's
him."
like
this is what-
Malkovich is doing. I feel like it's a different thing for him. It's not this like snarling, cocky, like aggressive person. He's like, it's actually a lot of subtle self-doubt, and
it's almost like relaxing. Like I found him like
yeah, like
calming
he's
this mo-
resigned. He's resigned to it in a fascinating way, and so it is. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. So anyway, like I really liked all that stuff. So my two problems. One, this 1000% has Netflix original disease, which is a new condition that I've diagnosed in the show in the last few months, John. I've been doing groundbreaking research on this.
Yeah.
This movie is straight up a half an hour too long. If I'm being generous, let's say 20 minutes. And the problem is that I have no problem with a 2-hour movie. When we watch 2-hour movies that are really fucking good in the show, I'll always say, like, I could have watched more, right? Because you can tell when a movie has I need the movie to have meaning and structure. Like, maybe that's just where I am in my life, John. But, like, I can't handle this meandering horseshit. Like, all of these Netflix movies.
Motherfucking
It's like
screenwriters.
it's
Go
like
back
they're
to
just
screenwriting
it's like they're
school.
just sitting back and throwing ideas at the wall, and then the editor just goes, yeah, fuck it, it's Netflix, let's put it all in here. And the result is that these movies like lack very clear sort of locomotion and direction in one way. So that's a problem for me. The other thing is like the horror doesn't make any sense to me. I don't even know why this is a horror movie. Like, I feel like this would have been brilliant as a black comedy where maybe some people die accidentally or something. Like, the
Just,
quality.
like, randomly throwing some deaths just because.
But no, but like think of something like
trips.
but I can think of multiple black comedies where people die, right? And it's just comedy around people, whatever. But that's not my point. But like the death scenes and the effects and like all of that stuff involving that. First of all, it's forgotten for like long stretches of the movie, and then all of a sudden you're in like a stalking sequence, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess I'm like watching a horror movie. And it's the effects and the scenes are literally on par to me for like some of the stuff in Tales from the Hood 2, which is just this really like cheaply
Oh,
made
no.
like
Out of
that's
here.
how bad
No.
that's how
Get out
bad
of
that's
here.
how
It was
bad
at
the-
least part one, Eric. All right.
okay. Like literally, but what's so weird is like there is so much attention and like directorial. There's like a lot of skill and a delicate hand being paid attention to these dialogue scenes, these character interactions, like developing that stuff. And then you get into the horror, and it's like he just took a vacation that day and brought the B unit in, and they just fucked around and did whatever. Like there's one scene I think with the paint death scene is actually really fantastic, and to me like thematically brings in all the themes the movie is talking about previous to that. Like literally one of the deaths is just like a hand out of a ceiling like grabs a person, they scream and they're
Okay,
dead. It's
so
like
I
I don't even understand why it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
I guess is my point.
But,
Cece,
I mean-
you disagree first, and then I'll
Okay,
disagree.
okay.
I've
back me
waited
up.
so many episodes for the CC versus Eric episode, and I feel like it's finally here.
No. I mean, I understand that, but I really think that if you look at it through the lens of it's, I mean, I know you don't like haunted house movies, so we're starting off on the wrong foot, but that's basically what this movie is. As opposed to it being a haunted house, you have haunted art. So everything that like it revolves around the aspect that it's a haunted object that is possessed. It's basically like Annabelle. This instead of him possessing a doll, he gets to possess whatever artwork is around him because it's the idea that he's like poured himself into it and that this madness is affecting those who are profiting off of it. So,
No, I think it totally makes sense. I just don't think it's executed very well.
well, I mean, I think that
Like Schnars, even you were saying that like it's a lot of it is just thrown out there and then never really fully kind of brought together.
well, like
You know what
the
I mean?
scene where the monkeys come out of the like gas station painting, like that could have been really a lot. That could have been better handled. But I also think that he knew his audience. Like at Art Basel's not going to sit there and watch a movie where people are getting, fucking clocked with a wrench from a CGI monkey. So
Yeah, but
Mhm.
I don't think I don't think it has to be that.
Jumanji.
I think there's
there's
just
an in
it's
between.
just
Here, all right, hold
it's
on.
just such an
Here's
afterthought is my point.
Eric. I understand the point that it's not super well executed. And like I guess the point I was making earlier is that it's disorienting only insofar as like the tone that gets established pretty early on and like the especially the dialogue and like sort of the punchiness of some of the dialogue puts you in a frame of like it that is not congruent with a horror movie sort of feel. Like it's if you want to go into like the genre, language, like it's just like it's just out of sync there, right? So, but I actually, I mean, here's the thing is like the deaths and like the actual killing, it's like the point of the movie. Like you couldn't take like it literally is the point of the movie is that there's this art. I mean, I won't try to like give the entire thing. I won't do it justice, but like essentially like they're commercializing this art that was never meant to be commercialized, and like they're kind of whether you want to say cheapening or destroying or what somehow like this artist who we didn't even talk about the fact that throughout the film you actually and I actually think they do a good job of this like the exposition is handled I think fairly effectively. You come to realize like this artist who was crazy, he was like abused as a child, then he had like bad experiences in the war, then he was abused in like a mental institution, then he starts painting, and what he was doing was basically injecting or using his own blood serum in his painting. And so they like figure that out. So all of these paintings have this dude's blood in them. And so he is infected, right? He's like haunting all of this stuff. And so as it's being commercialized, like that's where this sort of like evil is allowed to permeate, right? Whether the evil is unleashed because of the commercialization or whatever however you want to frame it, but like it's literally the point of the movie. Sort of like remove that stuff, you literally are just left with like a punchy satire or like a punchy critique of the art world, which like is fine, but like the killing itself is the critique in a lot of ways.
Right.
Well,
I would
that's
also
fine.
argue-
Then I guess I wish they would have just like tried
Done it
harder.
better.
Yeah.
That-
Yeah.
that, like
Yeah.
I get it. Like it was
Listen,
it
I
actually
think I also think that a lot of this stuff I could forgive if it was tighter. Like that's a huge problem for me that I think then makes me start picking other stuff apart.
Yes, and like there are certainly I don't want to make it sound like this is like a perfect movie, but like I do feel compelled to defend it. Like I actually think
It
if
made
John-
Eric's top 10 list.
John,
so,
John,
so-
John, you're only defending it because I'm dug in.
no, I mean I really did enjoy it, but there is an element of like you're making it sound worse than it is, right? So like
Mm.
I actually think the kill scenes themselves, like listen, the Tony Collette kill scene is
I loved it. I
really
thought
well
it was
It's
great.
the CGI
Well-
in that scene sucks so bad.
well,
Oh my god! I don't
It's
care
awful.
if it's shitty CGI.
I'm
Like, we're
sure that was
talking
all
about-
practical.
It's awful. I
How?
really did
think it's
enjoy.
practical.
I really actually the actual scene I wasn't there for, but I did enjoy the where it
after
goes. Yeah, I enjoyed like the next day.
That's sort of what I was getting
Well,
to as
again,
well.
but there's like a rare instance where it's really playing into other themes explored in the movie, like not being able to tell the difference between what's art and what isn't because it's all,
well, and
nebulous.
that's what I'm saying. Like like look, like I think the the criticism and sort of the point I was making earlier is like the film is weird, and so you kind of just have to be like there for the fact that like there's this like kind of like weird tonal shifts that happen where there's like this like strange orb technology murder sequence followed by this like pretty absurd sequence of children like stepping in her blood. I mean,
That was
it's
pretty
really
sweet. You know what that
Yeah.
reminded me of? That
That-
reminded me of May.
That
yeah.
whole sequence I thought was hilarious, where she's
Yeah.
going over the fact that like the kids thought it was fake, so they're stepping in the blood, and like finally like somebody walked in and realized that this thing's real. Like I thought that was great because it went on for so long.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, you know, people were there for half an hour, then we realized it was like no, they were there for the morning, then a tour came in, then these people came in. Like it went on like
yeah.
yeah for a
No,
lot.
it was. And it's being narrated. It was just really well done. I mean, listen, the other person I love in this film, and she doesn't actually do really anything, but the Natalia Dyer character, Coco, like, it's
Yeah.
just amazing because she's basically like this girl who's trying to get into the art world. So she's
Yeah.
taking these like really shitty jobs where everyone is so super mean to her.
She's Stranger Things
And-
girl.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
then
liked her a lot.
her like payment for like suffering these indignities over and over is that she has to keep walking in on all of these people having been like horrifically murdered.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
listen,
just
I have been her several times in several different jobs and have had like really. I haven't walked in on anyone dead, thank God, but I've had some very horrific experiences.
You've seen some shit.
I've
Mm.
seen some shit, like literal shit. I have seen it.
I kept watching this and thinking that like this experience for Cece was the same for me watching Lawnmower Man and
It
reliving
probably-
my like
yeah,
my
exactly.
like CD-ROM youth. Like,
Well, I sent you a picture of my office, and it looked kind of like the gallery. And I was just sitting because I was watching this at work, and I was sitting there, and our intern kept trying to talk to me, and I was just like, I can't right now.
Can't.
This is
what's funny is your office looks exactly like every small interactive shop I've ever worked for. Also, like the exact same desks and like setup. Like, so I feel like there's a lot of similarities.
I think too. I think if the ending had, I feel like they really don't stick the landing with the ending. It kind of just ends in a weird way. Also, like the title of the movie, fucking whatever, man. I mean, I understand where the connection to the movie comes, but like, you'd think for a movie named that something that weird, they would like maybe hammer it home a little more. You know, like.
I get that part. Like, I wish that the end would have been a little more
It just
punchier.
ends.
But like, I mean, it ends with her because she's really the reason it all happened. Like, her assistant is the one who like brought her the art, and you know,
Well,
she's kind
she's
of like
like-
the
She's like the original Sin, right? Like, 'cause
Yes,
she
yeah.
was like this like punk outsider
right,
who like
exactly.
went super corporate and went super, you know,
Yeah.
commercial.
The term of like buzzsaw is reminiscent of like the lowbrow artists who fight their way out of it to become velvet high-end artists, but you know, they're pretty empty and useless at that point. So
Yeah.
I mean,
to throw this, like, we should throw the spoiler alert, but like, I would agree with you on the ending, with the caveat being that the way Rodura is killed is so absurd. I
It's
mean,
so
just like
stupid. It's
next
so
level
stupid.
well, it
absurd.
just comes out of nowhere. You're
Yeah.
like, she gets away from all of the art in her house attacking her, but then I think you're right. Like, it's the art on her body, because that was from her original like punk days. That's what, you know.
I also think that the CGI in that scene was real bad. Like, this is the first time actually in a long time that the CGI in a movie actually bothered me. Like, by how.
Oh yeah,
kinda
it was so much
cheesy
worse
it
than
is.
the CGI ball sacks of Lawnmower Man.
Well, listen,
Or how about Tremors, the like Cold Day in Hell?
listen.
Like,
At
come
no
on.
point. But Tremors Cold Day in Hell knows what the fuck it is, John, is my point.
Well, I think this does too.
This does too. That's
Yeah.
the point. Like,
Listen, you had John Malkovich money. I refuse to believe you can't get like a slightly better
Oh,
CGI
dude,
shot.
I bet John Malkovich read this and was like, "Fuck yes, I get to stick it to a bunch of art assholes.
Yeah.
Fuck yes, count me in." So
I
I
don't
doubt.
think John Malkovich says "fuck yes." Like I'll just be honest. I don't think.
No, he probably goes, "Fuck, sure, yeah,
Mm.
count me in." There you
Mm.
go.
Did anybody see his?
Mm.
Did anybody see his bizarre little thing to start the Super Bowl?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
freaking
It was
so-
like
it was so
the Roman, like his just like
Oh yeah, yeah,
Ber-
yeah.
it was like berating
Like,
like a room full
His
of
little
executives. or
speech. His little speech was fine. like it was John Malkovich-y in a
It
good
was
way.
like in the
but-
it was in the Coliseum.
Yeah, but like
Yes,
everything
yeah.
with Peyton Manning, I was like, did you seriously pay this motherfucker to produce this thing? Because this is the worst thing I've ever seen.
Really? I thought that was the best part of the Super Bowl. Actually.
Well, listen, I didn't know what was about to hit me, so
I mean, besides Maroon 5.
yeah.
And she will be loved.
You know what? So I'm gonna say this, and you guys are gonna think I'm joking, but low key, I think my low key favorite part of this movie was Robo Hobo, and
Dude, he was amazing.
Yeah.
I
was
mean,
really good.
legit, it's actually the scariest thing in the entire movie because it's this really bizarre, like, uncanny valley effect where it's definitely an actor playing it, but they've used some CGI to like. That's kind of a weird thing I actually sort of liked in this movie is that I feel like it's sort of out of time in an interesting way. Like, that's a straight up fucking android, but at the same time, like, there's some weirdness with the phones. Like, I don't know, like, why does Jake Gyllenhaal have a flip phone? It's everybody.
Well, because he, like John said, he's refusing the technology of the contemporary, and he wants to maintain. Listen, I can go on about this shit all day long because I have people who are like, I can't have a video artist because it takes away from the authenticity of fine art, and I'm like,
But like
the
the robot specifically though is like that's not technology that exists, right? Like that's a literal humanoid robot that can like talk and stuff and walk. I did love that.
coming.
I did love
Yeah, I was
that.
gonna say we're not that far.
I did
away.
love
I
that
didn't
in
think we were
the-
that far.
I did love that in the storage room, he's just out in the open, which I really enjoyed. Like they didn't put him in a
Wow.
room or something. He's just like in the hallway. That's a
No,
he's
he broke out because
he's-
you hear the door go up.
He's like
while,
the
Yeah.
scariest part of the movie, and I actually kind of like when he first shows up in the beginning, I'm like, oh dude, I hope there's like a lot more of this thing, and then he just shows up for like 2 seconds at the end.
Did anybody in that sequence think that they also had Jake Gyllenhaal playing Hobo Man?
I am literally
Oh.
trying to look up.
I would-
He is
This person.
credited. It's a different actor.
Like-
He's like
Mark
a more of like a
Steger?
Because I
yeah, he's like more
enjoyed
like a stuntman type actor.
I enjoyed like because he sort of says some things in the beginning that you think might be like maybe under the radar important to the larger plot, which they probably are. But I wanted him to keep showing up and like saying cryptic weird things that like meant
Well,
stuff,
he only says three. He only had 3 lines, but
Right.
they were like somewhat important. Like he
I
basically
wanted,
was saying
like,
like
a-
weird fucking
Yeah.
arty.
I wanted like
Do you feel invisible? I can't save you.
Yeah,
I wanted like a Chucky doll, like a good guy situation with Robo Hobo John.
yeah.
Oh.
Do we want to talk about Vertal D's?
These nuts.
Dude,
Vertal-
There was
Versus-
speaking of there was a D's Nuts Super Bowl commercial. Did you guys see that?
No.
Oh, it's do you know the company Dietz and Watson?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So they
yeah.
make like turkey and shit. They have
Yeah.
nuts now, and literally the whole commercial was a huge D's nuts. Like they just they were saying like Dietz
It's like
nuts
Dietz nuts.
and like winking at the camera and making jokes about it. I was like, I could not believe I was seeing it on national television.
Yeah, I mean, so that was just like a joke that we we saw on the internet today. But the names in this movie are so goddamn weird. Like I was there just for the weird names, honestly, at a certain level. So Jake Gyllenhaal's character's name is Morph, Morf, Morph Vanderwalt.
Hmm.
Then the other guy, John Don Don. That's the other one that I
Done,
just
done.
it
Dun,
killed
dun,
me.
dun.
Don Don.
Done, done,
I
done,
was
done.
saying over email, like I heard an interview actually this weekend on NPR with this dude, and I don't think there might have been some specific names for the reasons for the names, but he basically was just saying that he's way into weird names, and so like when he's out and about in life and he hears weird things, he just writes them down and then makes them into names. So
He's
it's
nuts.
it's kind
He's
of
also, he's also into these.
John,
Jeez.
it's kind of a perfectly artsy fartsy thing for this movie to have in it.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I
for
mean
sure.
they're amazing. Like that's when you know this movie's a little silly when the first person introduces himself as Morph Vanderwall, and you're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is this guy talking about? So
Ah.
Well, anytime you think about how ridiculous it is, just think about me at my day job, just slaving away to these people.
no, well, listen, we were talking about a pre-show, but like I got to have a like meal and some drinks with Cece and her dad, who are both in this industry. You guys have great stories. There's like
Oh yeah, we have
ludicrous stories going on in this.
crazy.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I know you asked over email how I felt about the installer character, and Yes, they are definitely treated that way. I mean, that one was a little particular because obviously, like, he wanted to be an artist, but he could only make it as an installer. But yeah,
I took him as almost like art bro. He was
yeah,
like an art bro. He like wanted to be like kind of like jockey, but then he's also like wanted to
yeah.
show that he was like
It's
super
where
into the art.
it's where they like straddle the line of like not being in that group, but not being artsy enough, and yeah, there's takes all types.
All right, guys, skin your ass raw. Would you recommend Velvet Buzzsaw, John?
Yes.
Cece,
Yes.
Joe?
Yeah, I would.
Um, I'm gonna say maybe. Like,
I was
You
gonna
want-
like no.
no,
You want me to pull up the top 10 list?
no,
Yeah.
I'm good. I don't think it's worse, but it's definitely not on my top 10. I feel like if you
Where you're wrong.
I feel like if you're like me and you have an aversion to this Netflix original syndrome, as I've described tonight in the show, like you're gonna have the same problem with this movie that I did. However, there are like the cast is killer, and there's some real weird character stuff that can be interesting. I think maybe if you go in, you maybe listen to this. The rare occasion where I might say like listening to this first might calibrate you for it a little bit, John, because like it is such a weird thing, I guess.
Oh yeah.
But I think you got to make that call for yourself, man. I'm not putting a ruling in tonight.
You can't do that. You
I
can't
can
do that.
whatever I want. All right, guys. Time to take a quick break and do some fan mail.
We told you the rules.
Remember the first one?
You can't get them wet.
Don't let them eat after midnight.
What if they're eating in an airplane and they cross the time zone? I mean, it's always midnight somewhere.
You didn't listen. Now, was that civilized? No, clearly not. Gremlins 2, the new batch. Rocking your way this summer. Rated PG-13. Starts Friday, June 15th at a theater near you.
Hello, creeps.
It's John Kassir.
The voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I'm a friend of bloodygoodhorror.com.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. Got some sick new gifts for the show here, John, including Joe saying "fuck dodgeball" last week.
Fuck dodgeball.
I have thought so much about dodgeball. We actually have an email about dodgeball, which we're gonna. But superfan Dusty made these and sent them my way, so thank you, Dusty. John, we got a late dispatch from bloodygoodhorror.com from Mr. Managing Editor Andy. Luke has a review up of Velvet Buzzsaw. I don't think he liked it. Maybe Luke and I can be friends after all. But every time I think that,
Listen.
Every time I
sent
think
Luke
that
what
he
I sent
reviews-
y'all, and he said he liked it.
every time I think that he reviews something I love and he hates it, and then he hurts my feelings all over again. So, as I mentioned, Jason's interview with Nicholas Pesci's on the site now. Also, Sophie has attended Panic Fest in Kansas City, and she'll be having some reviews soon from Never Hike Alone, Gags, and One Cut of the Dead. So there you go. Check out bloodygoodhorror.com.
Is that like a new Dead film?
I have absolutely no idea, John. I doubt it.
Okay.
You know what happened with George Romero, right? I know you're not on Twitter, but
Did he admit to having blackface photos in the
No.
80s or?
no,
Oh,
I'm
God.
sorry.
he is dead though. First up, Corey. Corey says, "What up, y'all? A recent email to you about Lawnmower Man reminded me of something. I have a large collection of movies on DVD and Blu-ray, and in April of last year, separated from my wife." Then he makes a "my wife" joke, Joe. My wife. And
My laugh.
okay, levity, I guess, helps the situation. And as I was packing up the movies, I would separate the movies I was leaving because they were quote unquote hers. One movie I made sure to leave, Lawnmower Man.
Oh, that's the final.
Got her.
scene. Yeah.
Some real, yeah, that could get you in trouble in divorce court. That's a passive.
I might be
aggressive
paying
movie.
alimony for the next 20 years, but fuck you.
Yeah.
You have to watch Lawnmower Man.
Here, it's a
Listen,
director's
I'm
cut.
sorry to hear about the divorce, but he seems like in good spirits about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like-
Sounds like she deserved it.
Gifting someone the director's cut of Lawnmower Man, I feel like should be a hate crime.
Basically. Oh, God.
Would it be weird if like the fourth person in line in Virginia comes on and says, "Well, I didn't do blackface, but I have gifted Lawnmower Man to multiple people."
Or just like even if he directed it, I directed Lawnmower Man.
Yeah.
There's a picture of him from his high school yearbook holding the director's cut of Lawnmower Man.
I
on
changed my
VHS.
name. Confession: I'm the reason why there's so much extra monkey in the director's cut.
All right, let's go to the fifth guy then. See what we got.
That's from Corey. Next up, Wes says, I just watched Velvet Buzzsaw and thought it was just okay. Maybe I had too high expectations being that Nightcrawler was such an amazing film. I just felt let down after watching it. The acting was great and the paintings were very creepy, but when it came to the climax, when those involved were being killed, it seemed very generic. As I thought about this, I realized the film is probably geared to a more general normie audience, not those of us who have viewed countless hours of horror. What do you think? Thanks for continuing to make a great show. Yeah, I mean, I do agree that it's maybe not, I wouldn't say a normie audience per se, but maybe not your typical, like, what you think of as a horror audience, potentially.
Well, it's definitely Netflix, you know, like it's front and center on their homepage right now.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
yeah,
fair.
maybe not normie, but it's definitely a wider audience than you would get at like a Shudder release.
I
or
also
something.
I think that this movie has made me give, like, I liked Nightcrawler a lot, but this movie's made me give it a little side eye because I feel like it is meandering in the same way that this movie is.
Yeah, there was some feedback in Slack too about the way that the kills were edited. Like some of it about bloodlessness, but also just like cutting away. Which there is some of it, like there were weird choices about like when
Sure.
he cut away from some of the kills, which I didn't really understand. But I don't know, because
La-
like you do see Tony Collette's arm just like fully amputated,
Gone, yeah.
spewing
Yeah.
blood. So I don't know.
last email from Christian. Before I start with my dodgeball memory, I
Mm.
want to say that I've been listening to the show since the Dark Knight episode way back in 2008, when shenanigans and Google reports were still a thing. I started listening due to Mark and I being friends. Thank you for putting out a quality show that has kept me listening the whole time. Also, I'm a little saddened that Mark is no longer on the show, but his attendance had been so poor he would have been kicked out of a school due to it. Perhaps you could say he was expelled from Spooky School.
Oh.
Yes, Christian, very nice.
So for my dodgeball memories, I have to state that apparently my school was different than others. Eric mentioned the foam balls being brought out for the co-ed games. We had those balls for any and all dodgeball games. They had that gross plastic cover called gator skin on them. I'm not familiar.
Yeah, I know what he's talking about.
In elementary school, I was not great at sports, something that continues to this day. Oh, this speaking of things that crushed my soul today, John, just wait for this. I would spend my time avoiding being hit, like in the sense that I just related to this so much that it hurt my inner child.
Yeah.
I'd spend my time avoiding being hit, taking the loose dodgeballs, and handing them over to the kids who could throw.
Oh yeah,
just-
I know that person. Like yeah, there was
just-
definitely like the
Just soak that in. You're like, it's like in a shooter. You're playing like the healing class, the support class, basically.
or like what like the big shark. There's those like fish that like latch on and like clean it as
live
it goes around.
like
yeah.
live in its mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
My gym teacher came over to me in the middle of class one day to basically tell me I was playing the game wrong and to stop dodging the ball and catch it, throw it myself. Well, I tried, and the next round I tried to catch the ball, thrown by the kid who had already hit puberty and started growing a mustache in 5th grade. The ball went straight for my crotch, but it didn't hit my balls. Nope, it hit me in the tip of my dick.
Oh,
I dr-
wow. Okay. Okay.
see. Now we're at the portion of the show that you can't relate to.
Nope, I cannot. I'm sorry.
That ball went. I dropped it. I dropped to the ground, and when the coach came over, he told me to walk it off, and that I could go back to playing the way I was before.
Jesus.
Oh man.
F dodgeball, Christian.
That's the best
Yeah.
email I think
This
we've ever
is
gotten.
like this brought up some real childhood emotions for me that I was not really ready to deal with in the middle of my workday.
Oh.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful email. Thank you.
I mean, Maybe there's something to be said, Joe, for dodgeball just teaching you a lot of really tough life lessons early on. you
No,
know?
it's a nightmare. Once you get to middle school, dodgeball's a nightmare. Like in first and second grade, it's like, oh yeah, we're all kind of the same.
Yeah.
But then you get to middle school, and there's like fucking Tony Romo, like who's like jacked up.
Well,
and
so
he's
the other
15.
thing I remembered is like I don't even know if they have these at schools now, but we use those like 1950s ass red industrial dodgeballs that were like
Oh, yeah.
straight
Yeah,
up
the
rubber,
kickballs.
hard rubber.
Stick.
But they
Yeah.
would also deflate some of the air out of them. So not only could you get a really good grip on it, but when you threw it, it would like flatten out like this, like a projectile. It's fucked up, man.
I'm just putting it out there. I love dodgeball.
I
was
loved
like,
dodgeball.
Well, you probably went to some like prissy rich kid school where it's just like everybody was like, "Oh,
Who, me or Cece?
I was
No,
about to say, who
John.
are you talking to?
who am I talking to?" Of course, it's Schnars.
I went
Okay,
to
good.
public school, man. Like, I don't know. It's pretty regular.
No, I'm with you, Eric. It's a fucking nightmare.
Well, we got some tweets.
info@bloodygoodhorror.com. That's it for emails.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm
Some
still, I'm
BGH
still, I'm
classics.
still recovering. I'm still recovering from that email, but yes, I'm ready.
These might help. Jake, that's at jhar0. So we're going to start with BGH Classic. These are classic moments in BGH history and lore. And you can find them by becoming a patron at patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. Jake says this is a Mark quote. "Oh my God, have you guys ever seen that fucking movie? It is fucking horrible." And that's Mark after watching The Lawnmower Man for the first time, episode 132.
Amazing.
Machete.
That's great.
That's
Jake
really
says,
good.
thanks for the staff pick, Mark.
Amazing.
Next one comes to us from Skylar, our buddy Skizbot. Eric says, "I totally appreciate the humor that Joe brings to the show, but 9 times out of 10, it's him making fun of things that I say, so I just want to punch him in his face." It's
Yeah.
episode 223, VHS.
Still mostly true.
Yeah. Well, you can argue it.
I gotta say too, as terrible as Lawnmower Man was, we've gotten quite a bit of mileage out of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's a gift that keeps
Uh,
on giving, really.
Monica at me, Corazon Miamor, the official archivist of Bloody Good Horror. This is another air quote. "I would kindly ask that you go fuck yourself. You can do it gently if you want. I just demand that it be done." Episode 242, Last Exorcism Part 2.
Oh, that movie sucked so bad.
Yeah, I would assume you were talking to the movie or the
No,
director
I'm sure
or someone
I feel
involved.
like I was talking to you, John.
Oh, it's also possible. All right, last one comes to us from Space Lawyers Podcast at Attorney at Space. Joe says, "Does it have a killer tire in it?" Eric says, "No, it actually has real people in it." And Joe says, "Fuck that, I'm not watching it then." And that is episode 163, the S&M Man, otherwise known as Sampersand Man.
Sam,
Oh, what a weird movie.
Yeah. All right. So those are our classics.
Those are great.
Ask BGH. This is our this is a place you can ask us anything, really. It just comes into your head. Just kick it over. And we might make fun of you, but we also might take it very seriously and answer it. So the first one comes to us from Dungeons R Us. That's Dungeons_R_us. "I'm in the camp of I'll see a horror movie on the big screen, no matter how bad. Since there aren't many horror movies that get wide released, do you feel more picky now that you guys are older, or have you always been persnickety with your horror movie time?"
That's a good question.
I'd say we're definitely more picky now that we're older.
Well, we've
It's-
talked. Yeah, we've talked about that for sure.
We've been
It's
over
more.
it.
I would say it's more having children thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Even back before I had kids,
I was
like I
gonna say,
still, yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Taking,
have
like-
kids yet, but I'm like, I used to watch all in any movie that I was like, oh, this looks interesting or this could be fun. And now I'm like, I can't, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
before-
even not horror, like just a shitty movie. If I take 3 hours of my day to like sit down and go to a theater and pay for that, like that annoys me.
Yeah. See, I don't know.
I love the horror. I love the theater experience. I love
Yeah.
it. So like
Yeah.
I used to go all the time.
I agree.
It's-
Earlier on in the lifespan of the show, when I had way less responsibility and more time on my hands, I loved going to theater, even if it was for a shitty movie. And I would
Yeah.
go through spurts like a couple times a year where I'd just start trying to catch up on back horror movies that I had seen, like just because I just was way into watching new stuff and absorbing that stuff. But life.
I don't find the theater enjoyable at all. It's disgusting. It's full of germs. It's filthy.
Okay.
All right. Well, there you go. Cody YOLO at Stovall Cody 42. So why'd they try to convince the powered people that they didn't have powers when they were just going to kill / nullify them. They already know their weaknesses and can kill them. It's like it's just a setup to turn the story around like some kind of unexpected turn thingy.
I don't
Are we,
follow
are
that.
we talking about Glass? maybe?
I assume this is a question about Glass, yes.
Sure.
I don't know how to answer that.
I'll be
anymore.
honest. Speaking of things I can't commit any more headspace to, Glass is one of them.
Yeah, Cody, you got to at least throw us like a hashtag Glass in there to kind of like, level set with us, because that's a couple episodes back now.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have
Um,
answered anyway, because fuck Glass.
It's
Fuck
a
it.
fair question. Like it was the whole Shamrock Society's plan might
I
have
would love to
just been a
see-
little too.
I did want to see the week 2 numbers on that.
Mm.
It's still number 1 in the theater.
Ugh.
What else
Yeah.
has come out though? Like nothing's really
Yeah.
No, it's been a pretty bad,
Mm.
couple of weeks.
Lego movie this weekend. I bet it
I
takes
know.
takes over.
I think I might try to go. We'll see.
Yeah, me too.
Craig.
Oh God,
at-
it's the number 1 grossing movie of 2019.
Yeah, Eric.
I mean, it's early.
the first week of February.
It made
It's been a month.
$90 million. It's been crazy, dude.
Craig, that's at 4 Color Craig, the number 4. If it had to happen, what famous work of art would you most like to be killed by?
I've thought about this before, and
Obviously.
yeah, I have. Well, because there's several paintings that are a lot larger than I imagined. So I was like, well, if it was like Jumanji and they came to life, like I would die quicker. That would be great. But I've had nightmares about the Screaming Man, so I
Mm.
I don't want that one.
God, I'm gonna forget. I'm like pretty sure it's not Dali because it doesn't really look like other Dalis. But there's like, but I'm pretty sure it's a Latin American artist. There's the like pretty famous painting of just like a really I think it's a dude, but it's like a really grungy looking like humanoid person holding like a head and like screaming. I'll have to
Alright.
look
You're not talking about Goya, like
it. Maybe.
Mars eating his child. Is that who you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's it.
that one's a creepy one too.
Hmm.
And there's some weird backstories with Goya, so that would make sense.
That
Oh,
is
boy.
exactly the one I was talking
I
about.
can
Saturn
say-
devouring. His
I
Yes,
can, I
that's
can
it.
say I've literally
Francisco.
I've
So
never
wait,
thought
is
about this
Goya
before.
Spanish or is he from?
Yeah, I don't know.
John.
I can't
I mean,
remember.
John,
All
there's
his
a-
food is in the Spanish aisle in my grocery store.
Thank you,
so-
Joe. You beat me to it. But you're yeah.
Jesus
God
Christ.
damn you both. Yeah, he is
Uh,
Spanish. I thought it was.
John-
All his
Look,
all his
John
shitty.
and I are trying to have an intellectual conversation over here, and you two want to make
Listen.
dad jokes.
John's listen.
Cece, my wife's Puerto Rican. I'm pretty sure I know better than you.
Also-
I didn't say anything about that. I'm making fun of your dad jokes.
Also, John's just posing at being an intellectual. Let's not get it confused.
all right,
At a
whatever.
certain point there, I
Doesn't
thought
matter.
John was going to start synopsizing a movie again.
Now you're just winding me up, Eric. All right. Eric or Joe, do you have a can of beans that you have for?
Welker? I don't know.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't even really understand the question. You just named an art thing you know and like, John. That doesn't even like
Picasso.
yeah. A painting,
What's 3 musicians? That would be pretty rough.
like the thing where the
we
dog, the thing where the dogs play poker.
Literally just said that.
He did. That's cool.
That's my
You guys
answer.
are on the same
That's my answer
wavelength.
too.
them sunflowers. Those are cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Or
Next
like one of
question.
those motivational posters where like the kitty's just trying to hang on because it's Monday.
Hang in there. I prefer never give up when the frog is in the mouth of the
Yeah.
bird and it's strangling
Those
the
are
bird.
pleasant.
Yeah. Skylar asks, "What's the first film you saw twice in theaters?" Mine was Dante's Peak, which means I got to see Grandma get melted in a lake of acid twice on the big screen.
Jeez, I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen a movie in theater like before I was an adult.
Really?
It might
Oh my God!
it
There were
might have been
like
it might have been Jason X.
Oh my God!
Because I cannot imagine like my parents like we didn't have a lot of money growing like taking us out to a movie more than once, and I didn't really start going to movies by myself until I was a teenager, and I wouldn't have gone by myself. I'm pretty sure it was Jason X.
See, I used to get dropped off at the movie theater by my parents. Like that was like a thing. and you'd
Yeah.
see like
Yeah,
you
I
know, you'd
wasn't.
see,
I
like,
wasn't
one-
a latchkey kid, John, so I didn't have that experience.
I mean,
Like I know I saw E.T. multiple times, so it was probably that. But like Temple of Doom, I saw multiple times, because I was 6, and obviously that's appropriate.
yeesh.
Ghostbusters, Goonies, like all those, like more than twice, like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I definitely used to go to shit a bunch. Mine was probably something really stupid and bad too, by the way. Like
Yeah.
those are good movies, Joe.
My
So,
parents would like put me in the movie theater and then like walk around the mall.
yeah.
Again, like my brother would have been like 8 and I was like 4. Like what the fuck? But they were different times.
Yeah.
Ironically, I
Uh,
think the second movie I saw twice in theaters was Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Oh, woof.
Yeah, I
Dude,
don't.
you d-
That might be
self-flagellation.
those might be literally the only two.
Okay. Skylar also asks, somebody once told me the world is going to roll me and I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed.
no,
Is that
no.
true?
No, it's not
Tyler,
true.
you are looking kind of dumb right now with your finger and your thumb in the shape of an L on your forehead.
All
I
right.
don't know what song I'd rather have in my head, Gasolina or fucking All Star.
What's wrong with Gasolina? Who doesn't like that?
Nothing. That's what I'm saying. I think I'd
Oh,
rather have Gasolina in my head.
If anybody was curious, like I don't often read these before I start reading them aloud, so like clearly you can get some shit by me. All right, Jeremy Burgess at JD Burge. Can anyone explain to me why important art critic there's some accent on that Morph Vandewalt uses a flip phone in 2019? I think we did speak to this actually in our review.
Because he can say, I'm not on Facebook. I don't get texts.
Yeah, I didn't.
Call me.
I didn't catch the reason why, but it reminded me of the weird seashell thing, and It Follows, like just a weird like wait that was like a little anachronism.
Yeah, I mean that was more like a futuristic thing going on, and It Follows, but I don't know.
Well, don't forget
Monica.
Don't forget about Robo Hobo.
Monica has a poll here. Which Velvet Buzzsaw character is more insufferable, Morph or Josephina? I'm going Josephina. Well,
Yeah.
where she gets to is more insufferable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree.
Morph almost ends up being not the hero, but he like figures it out and is like kind of wise to what's going on eventually.
Yes, some sort of morals to the end.
Yeah. Last one here from Diana. At Diana NK. Since Velvet Buzzsaw is essentially a not very good episode of Tales from the Crypt, what are some of your favorite episodes of Tales from the Crypt?
Dude, gosh, I don't know.
I hardly remember any of those. I remember liking them, but I don't really remember them.
Yeah.
I remember the one with the guy who gets like the voice in his ear and like tries to like jam it out with the Q-tip. Like that's all I got.
Yeah, I can't remember any of them.
There was a Tom Hanks one, I believe.
I mean,
Did I remember,
that's what was
like,
it was
Was
interesting.
it was like him and his friend dressed up as women and then lived in like an all women's apartment building, right?
Yeah,
That one?
yeah. No, you got it. Nailed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come to think of
So-
it, the Robo Hobo is a lot like the whatever the hell that robot was in the wraparound story of Tales from the Hood 2.
Mhm. Yeah.
What was the
What
name?
was
What was the
the-
name
what
of
was
that
that?
thing? It was like USA Bot or some shit, like
Yeah.
Patriot.
Freedom
something.
Bot or something.
Freedom.
Patriot Bot, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Billy Joel was playing a lot in that Tom Hanks one for some reason. I think. I don't know.
Huh?
We should wrap.
I'm ignoring you. Okay.
Is that it?
We're done here, Eric.
Art. I feel like we all learned.
Woohoo!
I feel like we learned nothing.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I want to
Suspiria
get
next week,
involved in art. I'm ready. See,
Hey,
tell
man.
me tell me how I do this.
I
I'm
can
swearing.
tell you all about it.
John, nobody wants to see your finger painting bullshit.
Sorry, I meant like buying and appreciating art, not
Yeah.
making.
Just like a white guy thinks he can just come in and do art.
Oh my god.
Oh,
I love it. See like John in his room like finger painting bullshit.
And he's like he's like texting Cece at 3 a.m. like really he wants her opinion on something.
He's got like smear on his face and like white overalls. It's Crayola markers next
I
to him.
appreciate the appreciation of art, John. You can text me at 3 a.m. your finger painting.
Finger painting bullshit.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
I think I'm gonna send that one in next week for BGH Classics. See your finger painting bullshit.
You're all dicks.
All right, guys. Well, we're going from one pretentious, overly long film to another as we review Suspiria next week. I have a feeling this is also going to be a movie that CC has feelings about.
Not as much as this one.
Yeah?
It made our top 10. We already know.
Delightful. In the meantime, bloodygoodhorror.com, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. We're on all the social medias, John, all that stuff. So check us out. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.